Senator Bernie Sanders. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. 2 minutes of an opening statement.
I don't have to tell anybody in this room that we are living in an unprecedented moment in American history. We have a president who is a racist, a president who is a pathological liar, and a president who is trying to divide the American people up based on the color of their skin, where they were born, or their religion. Now, Trump may be crazy, he may be a racist, but he is not stupid. He is doing what demagogues have always done, and that is to pick on minorities, to divide people up in order to gain power. The antidote, in my view, to what Trump is doing is exactly the opposite. And what our campaign is about is bringing people together, black and white and Latino, Asian American and Native American, around an agenda that works for all of us, not just the 1%. And when we talk about Medicare for all as a human right, we also talk about the disparities in the healthcare system. We talk about the need for more black doctors and nurses, and end the absurdity of infant mortality rates in the black community 2.5 times the white community. When we talk about wealth and income inequality, we talk about the absurdity of white families owning 10 times more than black families.
And time for questions, sir.
Etc.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sanders, you are not a supporter of reparations for descendants of African slaves. History shows General Sherman promised slaves 40 acres and a mule. Then President Abraham Lincoln supported the military order, yet it is a promise that was not kept. Knowing this, how do you correct this wrong, or do you think you have to?
Well, I support what Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina has talked about, and that is a 10-20-30 legislation, which recognizes that as a result of the legacy of slavery, we have massive levels of poverty, too much unemployment, not enough educational opportunity, and communities that are polluted, and our kids are getting sick. So what we are talking about is putting a massive amount of money into distressed communities, often African American and Latino communities, so that we end the absurdity of the kinds of inequities that currently exist. Here's my fear about reparations, and I understand the issue, and I'm on board the legislation that will study the issue. Here is my fear. The Congress gives African American community $20,000 check and say, thank you, that took care of slavery. We don't have to worry about anything more. I think that's wrong. I want to rebuild the distressed communities in America.
Thank you for that explanation. What would be your plan for Africa, Cuba, and Haiti? And then when it comes to Haiti and Cuba, there are different policies for asylum seekers from both nations. How would you fix that?
Well, we need comprehensive immigration reform, clearly, and that deals not only with the Latino community, but with the African community as well. Sometimes we ignore that issue. My answer to your question is maybe radical, in that unlike the President of the United States, I happen to believe in democracy and in human rights. And I believe that we should reach out to try to end international conflict and not simply send billions of dollars in arms to countries all over the world. Instead of fueling the arms race, maybe we rebuild America We rebuild our infrastructure, create millions of jobs right here.
But I'm going to ask you again, do you have a plan for Africa, Cuba, or Haiti?
Sure I do, and that is that we have normal diplomatic relations. I've been to Cuba, for example, on several occasions. I want to see trade opened up with the people of Cuba. I want to see the United States do everything that it can to address the very serious problems in Africa, and that, again, instead of putting money into weapons of destruction, the United States should lead the world in putting money into schools, education, and environmental protection.
So did you get a chance, before you came out on stage, to watch what was happening on Capitol Hill? Did you see the Mueller testimony?
I have not seen it yet today, no.
What are your thoughts about the fact that Mueller feels that the president is not exonerated from obstruction of justice?
Well, that's kind of what he wrote in his report, and he is not exonerated. Look, we know for a fact that the president did everything that he could to obstruct the Mueller investigation. He told people not to testify. He told people to try to fire Mueller and other people in the investigation. So I'm not quite shocked about what he said.
Okay. Gentrification is a double-edged sword. However, what is your formula to bridge the chasm without hurting the disadvantaged?
Gentrification.
Yes, sir.
Look, we got a major crisis in this country in terms of affordable housing. All right? And it's not just that we have 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets today. You got millions of people who are spending 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes on housing. And what we are going to tell the developers, you just cannot come in and build expensive condominiums and drive working class people who have lived in those communities their entire lives out of those communities. What we need to do is change the priorities of America. No more tax breaks for billionaires, no more but we're going to invest in health care, education, the needs of our children, the needs of our senior citizens. This is the richest country in the history of the world. 40 million people should not be living in poverty. 500,000 should not be homeless.
Senator Sanders, you talked about immigration earlier. How do you bring back humanity in this immigration process on the southern border?
Hard for me to talk when I'm sitting down. I'm sorry.
You want me to stand with you? I'll stand.
You can sit.
Okay, all right.
Look. Thanks, Jesse. The United States is about many things, but it is not about snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. It is not about putting children into cages. It is not about separating families. So we need, obviously, comprehensive immigration reform. We need a humane policy at the border, which understands that if a mother and a child travel 1,000 miles on foot to escape violence, they are not criminals. They have got to be treated humanely.
And in our last minute, would you bring back net neutrality since it was repealed a year ago by the Trump administration?
Yes. Look, let me just conclude, if I might, by saying this. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We need to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people as a right. We need to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. We need to cancel student debt. We need to adequately fund HBCUs. We need an unprecedented grassroots movement that tells the 1% they cannot have it all, that this country belongs to all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors.
Okay, so now you're in your closing.
Oh. Okay. Let me close in this way. This is the most dangerous period in the modern history of our country. And we have a president who thinks that he could win re-election by fomenting hatred and divisiveness. And our job is to do exactly the opposite. We need a presidential campaign which energizes and excites the American people, which brings young people out in unprecedented numbers. Now, I know the NAACP, your great organization, is working hard on that, and we're going to work with you. We win when the voter turnout is high. We will take on voter suppression from one end of this country to the other. I believe, and as president, I will implement a simple process. If you're 18 years of age in America, you are eligible to vote. End of discussion. This is not a moment to throw up our hands in despair. This is a moment to take on racism, sexism, homophobia, and this is a moment to go forward and create the kind of nation that we all know we can become. Thank you all very much, and thank you, NAACP, for all that you do.
Senator Bernie Sanders, candidate number 6. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are you gaining information today?